How's it going, guys? Kevin Ryan here, talking about my Wednesday Western for this week. And the movie that I chose is The Old Way from 2023, featuring Nic Cage. And part of the reason I chose it is because it's really bad. It's boring. It's overdone. It's like a made-for-TV Western in 2023, in an era when a Western has to be really good in order to get any sort of acclaim, which, as we've discussed throughout this series, is a big part of the reason for the modern Western. And that's an idea, if you want to look into more. Andrew Patrick Nelson talks about that quite a bit. Anyway, the other draw of this Western, though, and the reason I chose it despite it being a really bad Western, even though those are like some of the funnest reviews to write a lot of times, is that it features Nic Cage. And so I go into the lore of Nic Cage, the allure of Nic Cage, the draw. What is it about him? What is it about his style? And it's also especially interesting because this is Nic Cage's. This was his first Western, and he made it at a time when he is just really hitting stride with his films. I mean, just Mandy alone, and a lot of these like sort of more. He's working with these independent studios, and he's just knocking them out of the park. Yet he has this Western in the middle of a very successful year, which last year was a very successful year for him, and he fails. but he's one of those actors who we can look at and see that. Another interesting aspect of The Old Way is that it featured the armorer, the gun handler from a little movie called Rust, which was, infamously where Alec Baldwin wound up killing the cinematographer of his movie because he didn't know how to handle the weapons properly, and she didn't either, as evinced by the fact that she went to prison for it, rightfully so. Okay, so here's a little reading from the piece itself.
It wasn't in the script for the trigger to be pulled.
Well, the trigger wasn't pulled. I didn't pull the trigger.
So you never pulled the trigger?
No. I would never point a gun at anyone and pull a trigger at them, never.
It was a fabrication so bold that even Stephanopoulos saw through it. The interview was huge news at the time. An exclusive with Alec Baldwin a month and a half after the shooting on the set of Alec Baldwin's Rust. He had been mostly silent, or at least he didn't give any interviews. We'd become acquainted with the photos of him sobbing on the set after the tragic accident. We'll get into the entire story in a future Wednesday Western entry. For now, what matters is that a 24-year-old named Hannah Gutierrez was the armorer for Rust. The entire set was a mess from the start. Gutierrez was responsible for all the guns on the set, including the replica Colt 45 that Baldwin haphazardly fired, killing cinematographer Helena Hutchins. Gutierrez had been streamlined to the position thanks to her highly connected stepdad. Rust was only her second movie as an armorer. Her first was The Old Way, Nicolas Cage's first Western. She had raised red flags during the filming for that Western as well. On 2 occasions, she fired a gun near cast members without warning. The second time, Nicolas Cage shouted, "Make an announcement! You just blew my effing eardrums out," then stormed off the set. Shortly afterwards, A little over a month before the Rust shooting, Gutierrez appeared on Voices of the West podcast, characterizing the old way as a really badass way to launch her Hollywood career. Although she also described the process of loading ammo as the scariest thing. She added, I was really nervous about it at first, and I almost didn't take the job because I wasn't sure if I was ready. But doing it, it went really smoothly. The best part about my job is just showing people who are normally kind of freaked out by guns how safe they can be and how they're not really problematic unless put in the wrong hands. Do you believe that anything happens without the will of God? Nicolas Cage begins The Old Way, his first Western, with a whopper of a mustache. Oddly, the film is exactly what you would expect from a low-budget Western from 2023 starring Nicolas Cage, which, to make it all weirder, you can find on Disney+. Right out of the gate, you've got a man struggling to escape a noose as a preacher delivers a sermon declaring, "Do you believe that anything happened without the will of God?" Ominous figures loom in the shadows. Cage plays Colton Brigg, a gunfighter who has to avenge his wife, and he'll have to team up with his 12-year-old daughter to do it. This journey will bring them to... what am I saying? None of this is interesting or new. This movie is trash. I mean, it's great to have on in the background, I guess. It's relaxing, I guess. But it's basically a hodgepodge of Western archetypes and tropes. The centerpiece of the film is the father-daughter relationship. But even this, from a family angle, Nicolas Cage performed better as a better father in the animated series of The Croods, which is surprisingly good. The critical response to The Old Way seems apathetic and cold until you watch the movie. But still, first, come on guys, this is Nicolas Cage. Second, the reviewers are absolutely right. And third, but they're also being lazy. So, The Old Way is it's not entirely awful. The cinematography is gorgeous. The sets are elaborate and huge. But The Old Way wouldn't appear in this series without Cage at its core. It's a mediocre film full of stereotypes and that were made maybe never original to begin with. It lacks the creative brilliance, the psychedelic flourishes that cascade throughout Slow West 2015, which we covered earlier. Not to mention the special effects and storytelling. The music resembles an AI attempt at a generic Western soundtrack. The plot line is equally stilted and uneventful. The dialogue is paunchy and awkward. Cage flatly rushes his lines for much of the movie, with some of the other actors getting too dramatic. Which is not their fault. The actors are uninspired. The themes are broad. Nouveau Shamanic. People are drawn to Nic Cage because he delivers a costumed, ornamental version of Nic Cage. Nobody else talks or scowls or laughs like he does. The king of reaction shots. His career has all the variety of a mid-range buffet, a magnet for hangovers. He has delivered some objectively stellar performances. Adaptation in 2002, Leaving Las Vegas in 1995, and Raising Arizona in 1987, in that order, in my opinion. He played Benjamin Franklin Gates in the National Treasure series. He is Ghost Rider. Can you imagine being able to shape-shift so dramatically? He doesn't always make this transformation. Sometimes, like in The Old Way, he seems to phone it in. But even this is a spectacle worth beholding. You still get to watch Nic Cage navigate his craft, even if the movie is a stinker. The New York Times Magazine described him as Hollywood's greatest surrealist, whose personal and creative unpredictability has led him to attain near mythological status in certain corners of the internet. He is so iconic that he has his own style of acting. Nouveau Shamanic, a process of surrender that Cage views as an authentic alternative to the traditional methods of acting, which he views as a kind of deception. I don't act, he said. I feel and I imagine and I channel. The goal of Nouveau Shamanic is to follow impulses. This wildness of heart and eagerness to explore the depths of the subconscious mind resonates with iconic director David Lynch, who characterized Cage as the jazz musician of American acting. Ethan Hawke has lauded Cage's ingenuity, describing him as the only actor since Marlon Brando who's actually done anything new in the art of acting. Nouveau Shamanic often results in mega acting, an approach that some viewers and critics have interpreted from Cage as showy overacting. This assumption is a mistake. It forswears the possibility for a kind of cinematic enlightenment. A cinematic enlightenment, by the way, that the New York Times has deemed impossible for the Western, but we'll get into that in the review, in my entry on Bone Tomahawk, which is insane. So get ready for that. Like, prepare for that. I'm working on that one right now. It's crazy. You can find this kind of mega acting in Werner Herzog's Bad Lieutenant, his version of that from 2009. In it, Cage let his inner turmoil spill into the derangement of an unhinged police lieutenant who spirals into drug abuse and corruption of every kind. Also in Matchstick Men from 2003, great little movie, he unleashed the painstaking impulses of a con artist stricken with OCD. He really, and in that movie, he really lets his pathologies breathe. So, closing section, done with acting. Nic Cage is pure Hollywood. For one, he credits James Dean with inspiring him to begin in his entire acting career without needing to mention the fact that his actual last name is Coppola, as in The Godfather, Apocalypse Now, and American Graffiti. Cage has appeared in big budget movies and no budget movies and every level in between. So here's a typical Cage paradigm. He shuffles through highbrow and lowbrow, sometimes all at once. After winning an Oscar for his portrayal of a suicidal alcoholic writer in Leaving Las Vegas from 1995, which is based on an equally depressing or more depressing book, he landed a string of empty yet lovable blockbusters. They were all approximations of cinema. Pure blockbuster, full of overacting, done in total earnestness. We loved every moment of it. This string of films is now coded into the American experience. He played gaudy characters, excessively made up, and badly costumed. He owned the big screen in the late 1990s. The Rock, Face Off, Con Air, City of Angels, Snake Eyes, 8mm, and who could forget his frantic yet cool appearance in Gone in 60 Seconds. None of which saw the slightest hint of critical acclaim. It's not until recently, in fact, that his performances are earning him praise again. He has been sharp, with Mandy in 2018, Pig in 2021, and Dream Scenario in 2024, all of which are lower budgetary endeavors by independent production companies with lots of clout. A24, for instance. In the Western Movies Today episode of How the West Was Cast podcast, by our friend, co-host Patrick Nelson, he points out that modern Westerns are largely they're made as passion projects, and often with the intent of winning awards. So instead of compare this to the Western at its height, So that's 40s, 50s, first part of the 60s. When the Western was ubiquitously popular. And over 100 Westerns came out a year. Yet in that same period, none of them won Best Picture. 0. Westerns only started winning Oscars after the genre has supposedly collapsed. And for the record, there were a couple Oscars in there for Best Actor. In 69, we have True Grit, John Wayne winning his only Oscar. So, The Old Way doesn't quite fit this paradigm either one of them, but for good reason. I know I've disparaged the film for most of this, but The Old Way does have at least one standout moment of cinematic vibrance. An hour into the movie, there's this lovely campfire scene. The setting is reminiscent of the powerful campfire scene in True Grit, 1969, when Rooster finally tells Maddie his story. Colton, in the Old Way, played by Cage, faces his daughter, surrounded by night, and unburdens his sorrow, the loss of his true love, crying for the first time. And the tears are genuine. The character, Colton Briggs, was weeping throughout the body of Nicolas Cage. His brokenness is palpable as he and his daughter confront the realities of death. It's the fullest example we get of Cage's acting method. It's just enough to inspire hope that there will be more Nicolas Cage westerns in the future. Then, 2023, the year that The Old Way came out, Cage told Vanity Fair that he was done with acting. I may have 3 or 4 movies left in me, he said. Typical Cage, the numbers don't add up. He appeared in 5 other films that year alone, some of which, as we discussed, are his best work to date. He has also since appeared in 3 additional films, including Longlegs in 2024, with another 3 in various stages of production, including The Gunslingers, his second Western. Still, it's hard to forget what he said to Vanity Fair. I do feel I've said that it's hard to forget the rest of what he said to Vanity Fair. I do feel I've said what I have to say with cinema. I think I took film performance as far as I could. I do want to get much more severe and stringent in my selection process. I want to say bye on a high note. But who knows? Who knows where Nicolas Cage's performance starts and ends? How far it extends beyond the spectacle and mania of his presence on screen? Who knows if there are even limits to what he feels and channels and imagines?